Section 20 of The Coming Race. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Reading by Mary Rhodey. The Coming Race by Edward George Bulwer Lytton. Chapter 27. One day, as I sat alone and brooding in my chamber, Taee flew in at the open window and alighted on the couch beside me. I was always pleased with the visits of a child in whose society, if humbled, I was less eclipsed than in that of Ana, who had completed their education and matured their understanding. And as I was permitted to wander forth with him for my companion, and as I longed to revisit the spot in which I had descended into the nether world, I hastened to ask him if he were at leisure for a stroll beyond the streets of the city. His countenance seemed to me graver than usual as he replied, "I came hither on purpose to invite you forth." We soon found ourselves in the street, and had not got far from the house when we encountered 5 or 6 young Gy ei, who were returning from the fields with baskets full of flowers, and chanting a song in chorus as they walked. A young Gy sings more often than she talks. They stopped on seeing us, accosting Taee with familiar kindness, and me with the courteous gallantry which distinguishes the Gy ei in their manner toward our weaker sex. And here I may observe that though a virgin Gy is so frank in her courtship to the individual she favors, there is nothing that approaches to that general breadth and loudness of manner which those young ladies of the Anglo-Saxon race, to whom the distinguished epithet of "fast" is accorded, exhibit towards young gentlemen whom they do not profess to love. No, the bearing of the Gy ei towards males in ordinary is very much that of high bred men in the gallant societies of the upper world towards ladies whom they respect but do not woo. Deferential, complimentary, exquisitely polished, what we should call chivalrous. Certainly I was a little put out by the number of civil things addressed to my amour propre which were said to me by those courteous young Gy ei. In the world I came from, a man would have thought himself aggrieved, treated with irony, chaffed, if so vulgar a slang word may be allowed on the authority of the popular novelist who used it so freely, when one fair Gy complimented me on the freshness of my complexion, another on the choice of colours in my dress, a third, with a sly smile, on the conquests I had made at Apolline's entertainment. But I knew already that all such language was what the French call banal, and did but express in the female mouth below earth that sort of desire to pass for amiable with the opposite sex, which, above earth, arbitrary custom and hereditary transmission demonstrate by the mouth of the male. And just as a high bred young lady, above earth, habituated to such compliments, feels that she cannot, without impropriety, return them, nor evince any great satisfaction at receiving them, so I, who had learned polite manners at the house of so wealthy and dignified a minister of that nation, could but smile and try to look pretty in bashfully disclaiming the compliments showered upon me. While we were thus talking, Taee's sister, it seems, had seen us from the upper rooms of the royal palace at the entrance of the town, and precipitating herself on her wings, alighted in the midst of the group. Singling me out, she said, though still with the inimitable deference of manner which I have called chivalrous, yet not without a certain abruptness of tone, which, as addressed to the weaker sex, Sir Philip Sidney might have termed rustic, "Why do you never come to see us?" While I was deliberating on the right answer to give to this unlooked for question, Taee said quickly and sternly, "Sister, you forget the stranger is of my sex. It is not for persons of my sex, having due regard for reputation and modesty, to lower themselves by running after the society of yours?" This speech was received with evident approval by the young Gy ei in general; but Taee's sister looked greatly abashed. Poor thing! And a princess too! Just at this moment a shadow fell on the space between me and the group; and turning round, I beheld the chief magistrate coming close upon us, with the silent and stately pace peculiar to the vril-ya. At the sight of his countenance, the same terror which had seized me when I first beheld it, returned. On that brow, in those eyes, there was that same indefinable something which marked the being of a race fatal to our own, that strange expression of serene exemption from our common cares and passions, of conscious superior power, compassionate and inflexible as that of a judge who pronounces doom. I shivered, and inclining low, pressed the arm of my child friend, and drew him onward silently. The Tur placed himself before our path, regarded me for a moment without speaking, then turned his eye quietly on his daughter's face, and, with a grave salutation to her and the other Gy ei, went through the midst of the group, still without a word. Chapter 28. When Taee and I found ourselves alone on the broad road that lay between the city and the chasm through which I had descended into this region beneath the light of the stars and sun, I said under my breath, "Child and friend, there is a look in your father's face which appalls me. I feel as if, in its awful tranquillity, I gazed upon death." Taee did not immediately reply. He seemed agitated, and as if debating with himself by what words to soften some unwelcome intelligence. At last he said, "None of the vril-ya fear death. Do you?" "The dread of death is implanted in the breasts of the race to which I belong. We can conquer it at the call of duty, of honour, of love. We can die for a truth, for a native land, for those who are dearer to us than ourselves. But if death do really threaten me now and here, where are such counteractions to the natural instinct which invests with awe and terror the contemplation of severance between soul and body?" Taee looked surprised, but there was great tenderness in his voice as he replied, "I will tell my father what you say. I will entreat him to spare your life." "He has, then, already decreed to destroy it?" "'Tis my sister's fault or folly," said Taee, with some petulance; "but she spoke this morning to my father, and after she had spoken he summoned me, as a chief among the children who are commissioned to destroy such lives as threaten our community, and he said to me, 'Take thy vril staff and seek the stranger who has made himself dear to thee. Be his end painless and prompt.'" "And," I faltered, recoiling from the child, "and it is then for my murder that thus treacherously thou hast invited me forth? No, I cannot believe it. I cannot think thee guilty of such a crime." "It is no crime to slay those who threaten the good of the community. It would be a crime to slay the smallest insect that cannot harm us." "If you mean that I threaten the good of the community because your sister honours me with the sort of preference which a child may feel for a strange plaything, it is not necessary to kill me. Let me return to the people I have left, and by the chasm through which I descended. With a slight help from you I might do so now. You, by the aid of your wings, could fasten to the rocky ledge within the chasm the cord that you found and have no doubt preserved. Do but that, assist me but to the spot from which I alighted, and I vanish from your world for ever, and as surely as if I were among the dead." "The chasm through which you descended! Look round. We stand now on the very place